Welcome to everyone. Today we're going deep into the world of AI, specifically a company called DeepSeek. They've been all over the news lately, and not always for the best reasons.
Yeah, it's been quite a story.
It really is. Imagine like a company that just explodes in popularity almost overnight. Well, that's DeepSeek. Back in January, their user base in South Korea was huge, like rivaling even ChatGPT. And then they dropped this bombshell that they developed their AI model for like a fraction of the cost of their US competitors.
Right, sending shockwaves through the whole tech industry. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars instead of the billions that are usually poured into this kind of technology.
Exactly. So before we get into the controversy, can you give us like a quick rundown of what DeepSeek actually is?
Sure. So DeepSeek is a Chinese AI company, and their main product is this powerful chatbot similar to ChatGPT, but supposedly developed on a shoestring budget. They claim it only cost them $5.6 million.
Wow, that's a huge difference. No wonder everyone's paying attention. But all this attention, it seems to have brought some unwanted scrutiny too.
Yeah, things started to unravel pretty fast. South Korea's Personal Information Protection Commission, or PIPC, decided to suspend new downloads of the DeepSeek app. They were worried about, data privacy and transparency.
So no new users, but existing users are still okay to use it.
Exactly. It seems like they're trying to, protect potential new users while not disrupting service for those already using it. But South Korea wasn't alone. Italy's Data Protection Authority actually went a step further and completely blocked the chatbot in Italy. And then there's the U.S.
Things escalated pretty quickly in the U.S., especially with Texas leading the charge.
Oh, yeah. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has been very outspoken. He launched an investigation accusing DeepSeek of being, and I quote, a proxy for the Chinese Communist Party aiming to, quote, undermine American AI dominance and steal the data of our citizens.
Those are some serious allegations. Is this all just political posturing, or are there actual, genuine concerns behind all of this?
Well, I mean, there's definitely some geopolitical stuff happening, but I think it's important to separate the politics from the real security and privacy concerns. And those concerns are very valid.
Okay, so let's talk about those concerns. What are the main issues that have sparked this, global backlash against DeepSeek?
Well, there are two main concerns that keep popping up. The first, and probably the most obvious one, is data privacy.
Right. We've seen this with other tech companies, particularly those with ties to China. It's kind of like the whole TikTok controversy all over again.
Yeah, there are definitely some parallels there. The concern is that DeepSeek, because it's a Chinese company, could be legally obligated to share user data with the Chinese government, and that's regardless of all those users are located. This raises a ton of questions about how that data is collected, stored, and potentially shared.
So even if I'm not in China, my data could still end up in the hands of the Chinese government. That's a little unnerving. And we're not just talking about, my name and email, right?
No, not at all. This could include everything from your browsing history and location data to potentially even your financial information or, personal conversations you have within the chatbot.
Wow, okay. Data privacy is a big one. What's the other major concern?
National security. This is where things get even more complicated. The worry is that DeepSeek's technology could be used for espionage or to, gain an advantage in developing AI, which is becoming increasingly vital for economic and military power.
So it's not just about protecting individual users, but also about safeguarding national interests and maintaining a competitive edge in the global AI landscape.
Exactly. And that's why we're seeing such strong reactions, particularly from the U.S., where there's already so much tension and competition with China when it comes to tech.
Makes sense. Okay, we've got the U.S. and Italy taking action, but South Korea's approach is a bit different, right? They actually launched their own investigation into DeepSeek's data practices. What did they find?
Well, after their investigation, South Korea's PIPC found that DeepSeek wasn't transparent enough about how user data was being transferred and to whom. They were also concerned that the company might be collecting more personal information than it needs for the service to actually function.
So, not exactly a great report card from the PIPC, but we can't just take the word of these governments and officials, right? What does DeepSeek have to say about all of this?
Well, DeepSeek, along with the Chinese government, has strongly denied any wrongdoing. They say they're committed to data privacy and security, that they operate within the law, and that they would never compromise user data.
So we have two very different stories here. On one hand, we have multiple countries with serious concerns about DeepSeek's data practices and possible links to the Chinese government. And on the other hand, we have DeepSeek and the Chinese government denying everything and saying they're committed to user privacy. So where do we go from here?
That's the big question, isn't it? And that's what we're going to explore next. How these concerns and DeepSeek's response translate into actual risks for users like you. What does this all mean for the average person who might be using DeepSeek or other AI tools?
It really does feel like we're all kind of scrambling to keep up with technology that's moving so fast. So let's bring it back down to earth a bit. What does all this mean for us, the users? Like, if I'm using DeepSeek or some other AI tool, what are the risks I need to be thinking about?
Yeah, it's super important to understand the potential downsides. Let's start with data breaches. I mean, we hear about them all the time, but with these AI tools, the stakes are even higher.
Right, because they have access to so much information about us. It's not just our email address anymore, like you said.
Exactly. And if DeepSeek's security isn't, as good as it should be, or if they are forced to share data with the Chinese government, like some people suspect, then your personal information could be at risk. And I mean everything, your contact info, your location, what you've been browsing online, even the conversations you've had with the chatbot itself.
And those data breaches can really impact people's lives, right? It's not just a theoretical risk.
No, not at all. Identity theft, financial fraud, you can even be targeted for harassment. These are all real possibilities when your personal data ends up in the wrong hands. And even if there's no big breach, there's still the concern about, more subtle ways your data could be misused.
Data misuse. What do you mean by that?
So imagine DeepSeek is using your data to build this detailed profile of you, your political views, your religious beliefs, your spending habits, all that stuff. This information could then be used to manipulate you, like target you with specific ads or propaganda, or even discriminate against you in certain ways.
It sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, like our own data being used against us.
Well, sadly, it's not that far-fetched. We're already seeing this kind of data-driven manipulation happening, especially with social media algorithms. AI tools like DeepSeek could just make things a whole lot worse.
Okay, that's pretty unsettling. Is there anything else users should be aware of in terms of potential risks?
One thing that's perhaps even more worrisome is the potential for manipulation by the AI itself. These chatbots are getting incredibly sophisticated. They can mimic human conversations so well that it can be really hard to tell if you're talking to a real person or a machine.
And that's where things get dangerous, right? Because if we can't tell the difference, how do we know what to believe?
Exactly, and the potential for manipulation goes beyond just spreading misinformation. Imagine a chatbot that's trained to play on your emotions, to influence you, to buy certain products, or even, to do things that might not be in your best interest. It's a chilling thought, and something we really need to be aware of as this technology keeps getting more and more advanced.
Okay, so it sounds like so far AI is all risk and no reward, but there must be some positive aspects too, right? I mean, otherwise, why would anyone even use it?
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's important to remember that AI also has the potential to be incredibly beneficial. It can help us automate tasks, learn new things, connect with other people, and solve complex problems in ways that weren't even possible before.
Can you give me some specific examples of how AI is being used, for good?
Sure. In healthcare, AI is already being used to diagnose diseases more accurately, to develop new treatments, even assist with surgery. In education, it could be used to personalize the learning experience, adapt to different learning styles, and give students instant feedback. And in fields like transportation and energy, it's helping us develop systems that are safer and more efficient.
I've even heard about AI being used in creative fields like music and art.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pushing the boundaries of creativity, helping artists come up with new ideas, and even create whole pieces of music.
So it's not all bad news. AI can really make a positive impact on our lives.
It can. The key is finding that balance. How do we use AI for good while also managing the risks? And that's why this whole DeepSeek situation is so important. It's like a real-world test case that highlights all the challenges and opportunities we face as AI gets more powerful and more widespread.
It feels like we're at this pivotal moment. We can't ignore the risks, but we also shouldn't let fear hold us back from exploring the potential benefits of AI.
You got it. It's about having a thoughtful and informed conversation, acknowledging both the good and the bad.
So how do we navigate this complicated world of AI? What can we do as individuals to make sense of it all and, protect ourselves? Yeah, it feels like we're all just trying to keep up with technology that's changing so fast. So where do we even start? What can we do as individuals to navigate this new world of AI and make sure we're not just getting swept along?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It can be overwhelming, but I think the first step is awareness. We need to understand how AI works, what it can and can't do, and what the potential risks are.
So it's like being smart consumers, not just of products, but of the information itself, right?
Exactly. We got to be critical thinkers, question what we see and hear, and be wary of anything that sounds too good to be true. and we need to hold these companies and governments accountable for developing and using AI responsibly.
That makes sense, but how do we actually do that? Like, how can we hold these powerful entities accountable?
Well, one way is to demand transparency. Like if you're using an AI tool and you're not sure how it works or what data it's collecting, just ask. Read the terms and conditions, even if they're super long and boring. Support companies that are actually trying to protect user privacy and data security.
So be proactive, not just blindly accept whatever new tech comes along.
Yeah, exactly. And don't forget your voice matters. Support organizations that are pushing for ethical AI and good regulation. Let your elected officials know that you care about this stuff. Vote for people who prioritize responsible AI development.
It sounds like we can actually make a difference as individuals.
You absolutely can. And remember, this isn't just about protecting ourselves. It's about making sure AI benefits everyone, not just a select few.
That's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the personal risks and concerns, but the big picture is important too. Before we wrap up, I want to go back to something you said earlier about DeepSeek maybe actually being truthful about their low development costs. What if they really have figured out a way to create powerful AI so cheaply? What would that mean for the future of AI?
It's a really interesting question, and it could totally change the game. If DeepSeek is right, it could mean that AI becomes even more accessible, more widespread than we ever imagined.
And wouldn't that be a good thing? More access to AI could lead to so many advancements, right?
It could, but it also makes the security and ethical concerns even more urgent. If it's that easy and cheap to develop AI, then we need to be extra careful to ensure that it's being used responsibly. We need clear guidelines and regulations, and we need to have these conversations now before it's too late.
It almost feels like a race against time. Like, we need to figure out the rules before the technology gets too far ahead of us.
It's a challenge, definitely, but not an impossible one. We've dealt with technological disruptions before, and we've always found ways to adapt and use those innovations to, make things better for humanity. AI is no different. It has the potential to do a lot of good, but only if we make the right choices.
So let's make those choices. Let's keep learning, let's get involved, and let's work together to shape the future of AI. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into DeepSeek and all the big questions it raises about AI, data privacy, and what the future holds for technology. Thanks for joining us, everyone.